Hello there, welcome back to Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. This is episode 200. Well, it took 27 months to get here, but get here we did. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching, subscribing, commenting, giving the videos thumbs up. I really appreciate it. This time out, we are back in Cincinnati, Ohio at Crosley Field for game number 4 of the Strat-O-Matic Baseball Oldtimer Kings Gaedel Cup Finals, which has the 61 Reds hosting the 54 Indians. Let's take a quick look on how we got here to game 4. So with a 6-4 win in game 3, the Indians take a 2-1 lead in the series. You could rightly say that was a Dave Philly 6, Cincinnati 4 score, because Dave Philly's 2 3-run home runs was more than enough for the Indians. And game 4 tonight's the last one here. No, there's another game after this. Games 3, 4, and 5 are here in Cincinnati. Indians would like to take a commanding 3-1 lead. Reds want to tie this series up and try to win the next one before they have to go back to Cleveland. All right, so let's get to the starting lineups. First, for the visiting Cleveland Indians, leading off in left field, Al Smith. Batting second baseman Bobby Avila. Batting third, center fielder Larry Doby. Batting fourth, third baseman Al Rosen. Batting fifth, first baseman Vic Wertz. Batting sixth, right fielder Dave Philly. Batting seventh, shortstop George Strickland. Batting eighth, catcher Jim Hegan. And on the mound, batting ninth, is Bob Lemon. 1954, he was 23-7 with a 2.72 ERA, 258 innings pitched, number 3 hitting pitcher. So he gets that card inserted into the lineup for him. Now for the home team, the 1961 Cincinnati Reds. Leading off at second base is Don Blasingame. Batting second, shortstop Eddie Casco. Batting third, center field, Veda Pinson. Batting fourth in right field, Frank Robinson. Batting fifth in left, Wally Post. Batting sixth, third baseman Gene Freeze. Batting seventh, Gordy Coleman at first base, returning to the lineup from a brief injury. And batting eighth, catcher John Edwards. And on the hill, batting ninth, is Jim O'Toole. 1961, 19-9 with a 3.09 ERA, 253 innings pitched. He's a number 2 hitting pitcher. And so he gets that card inserted into the lineup for him. And I got to rearrange cards here. I have the home team where the visitor should be. So we took care of that. Glad I caught it now. All right, so we're ready to go. Al Smith steps into the box, and here's the pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout to start things off. And there's one away. Next up, Bobby Avila, second baseman. Here's the pitch. That's a ground ball to Eddie Casco, over to Gordy Coleman. 6-3 put out, and there are 2 away. Brings up center fielder Larry Doby. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a ground ball to Gene Freeze. He's up with it. And over to Coleman. And the Indians go 1, 2, 3. No runs, no hits. No one left on base. We got a half inning complete. And it's the Indians nothing. And the Reds coming to bat. O'Toole gets his first fatigue point. So Bob Lemon's out on the mound, ready to go. First batter for the Reds will be second baseman Don Blasingame. Here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout. So Lemon opens up his half of the inning with a strikeout, just as his counterpart did. That brings up shortstop Eddie Casco. Pitch from Lemon. Low and outside, and Casco gets a free trip to first. So he's there with 1 out. Casco's a D-rated Steeler, so he's not going anywhere. And that's going to bring up Veda Pinson. Here's the pitch. And that is a ground ball to first baseman Vic Wertz. And his only play is to go to first unassisted for the second out, but that allows Casco to move up to second. So there's a man on second with 2 outs. And right fielder Frank Robinson. Robinson back in his more familiar position in this game with the return of Gordy Coleman. Here's the pitch. And it's a fly ball to deep center field. But Larry Doby's there at the track to make the catch. And the side is retired. No runs, no hits, 1 man left. And after 1 inning complete, we are scoreless. And Bob Lemon will get his first fatigue point. And the Reds take the field for the top of the second. Leading things off for the Indians will be third baseman Al Rosen. It's a pitch from O'Toole. And that's a ground ball to shortstop Casco over to Coleman. And they get Rosen by a step on a 6-3 put out. 1 away here in the top of the second. That brings up Vic Wertz. Pitch from O'Toole. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for Eddie Casco. He's a 2. We roll a 7. And Casco with the backhanded stab makes the turn and fires to Coleman for another 6-3 put out, and there are 2 away here in the top of the second. Brings up the hero of last game. That is if you're an Indians fan. Dave Philly, right fielder. Pitch from O'Toole. That's a fly ball to left field, but it's going to be an X check for Wally Post, and he's a 4. We roll a 7. And a shoestring catch from Post out there robs Philly of extra bases. And once again, the Indians go 1, 2, 3. No runs, no hits, no 1 left. And after 1.5, we remain scoreless. Jim O'Toole, fatigue point number 2. All right, Bob Lemon. First batter is going to be Wally Post. Just made that great catch out there in left field. It's a pitch from Lemon. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 2 for Lemon. And there's 1 away here in the bottom of the second. Brings up third baseman Gene Freeze. Pitch. And Freeze gets under this one. It's going to stay in the infield. Al Rosen's underneath that over near the third base bag. And he makes the catch for out number 2. So 2 outs, nobody on for Gordy Coleman. Back in the starting lineup. Here's the pitch. That's a fly ball to right field. And Dave Philly's under that, makes the catch. And the side is retired. So the Reds go in order. No runs, no hits, no 1 left. 2 innings complete. And we are still scoreless. Bob Lemon, fatigue point number 2. Leading things off for the Indians here in the top of the third will be shortstop George Strickland. Pitch from O'Toole. And it's the first hit for the Indians. Strickland goes up the middle, makes the turn. He's going to hold at first base. A man on first, nobody out, and catcher Jim Hegan. Pitch from O'Toole. And Hegan gets a hold of this one. It's a sky-high, deep fly ball to left field. That sends Wally Post back to the track, to the wall. It's way up, out of here, gone. A 2-run home run from catcher Jim Hegan. And the Indians take a 2-0 lead here in the top of the third. And Jim O'Toole's going to pick up 2 more fatigue points and put him at 4. That brings up pitcher Bob Lemon. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout. Gets Lemon looking for the first out here. Strikeout number 2 for O'Toole. And we're back to the top of the order. Indians lead this one 2-0 on a Jim Hegan home run. 1 out, nobody on. Back to the top of the order, and Al Smith. That's a fly ball to left field. Wally Post has a beat on. And that's the second out. So 2 outs, nobody on. Bobby Avila. Avila's 0 for 1. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for Eddie Casco. He's a 2, roll of 14. And Casco makes a nice play on that one. Over to Gordy Coleman for the third out. And that's it for the Indians, but not before they pick up 2 runs on 2 hits. One of them being the Jim Hegan homer. And after 2.5, it's now the Indians 2 and the Reds nothing. And O'Toole's going to pick up another fatigue point. He's at 5 already. So Lemon comes out for the bottom of the third with a 2-run lead. And leading things off for the Reds is going to be catcher John Edwards. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball back to Lemon. He jogs towards first base and tosses underhand to Vic Wertz for the first out. Here's Jim O'Toole. Pitch from Lemon. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 3 for Lemon. And there are 2 away here in the bottom of the third. Indians lead this one 2-0. Back to the top of the order. For the Reds, Don Blasingame, who struck out his first time up. Pitch from Lemon. And that is a base hit into left field. Blasingame makes the turn. But he's going to hold there at first base. There's a man on first with 2 outs. And shortstop Eddie Casco. Casco walked his first time up. Here's the pitch. And that one's in the left field. It gets by Wally Post. Blasingame rounds third. Let's see what his running is. 2 outs. He's a 1-17. He's being sent home, and he is safe. So Eddie Casco with the 2-out RBI gets the Reds on the board, and it's now 2-1. And Lemon's going to pick up his 3rd fatigue point. So man on second with 2 outs. Vada Pinson. Pitch from Lemon. And Pinson lifts this one high, but it's going to stay in the infield. And George Strickland's under that. Makes the catch for the final out. But the Reds do pick up a run on 2 hits. They leave 1 man aboard. And after 3 innings complete, it's the Indians 2 and the Reds 1. As we go to the top of the 4th inning here in this Buckeye State Series, the Gaedel Cup Finals of the Strat-O-Matic Baseball Oldtimer Kings King of the Hill Tournament. And I need to give Lemon his 4th fatigue point. I forgot to do that. Okay. Larry Doby's leading things off for the Indians here in the top of the 4th. Here's the pitch. That's a base hit into right field for Doby. So he is there with nobody out. That brings up 3rd baseman Al Rosen. Indians would like to get that run back. Pitch from O'Toole. There's a base hit. right up the middle. Dobie's going to advance to second and hold there. So now it's runners on first and second with nobody out. And first baseman Vic Wertz. Pitch from O'Toole. Pan, that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 3 for the first out of the inning. That's strikeout number 3 for Jim O'Toole. And next up is Dave Philly. And he gets some boos from the crowd after that performance in Game 3. So runners on first and second, 1 out, pitch to Philly. It's a fly ball to left field. And Wally Post is under that, makes the catch for the second out. Runners are going to hold. So there's men on first and second, 2 away. And shortstop George Strickland, who singled his last time up and was driven home by the Jim Hegan home run. Here's the pitch. It almost hits him, and that's going to load him up for Hegan. Everybody moves 90 feet, and the bases are loaded. Catcher Jim Hegan, who homered his last time up. Pitch from O'Toole. That's a ground ball to third, but it's going to be an X check for Gene Freeze, and he's a 4. We roll a 10. And that one is off the heel of Freeze's glove, and everybody's going to move up 90. So Hegan now reaches on the E5, and Dobie scores. And the Indians get that run back, and O'Toole gets fatigue point number 6. So the bases are still loaded with 2 outs. And pitcher Bob Lemon comes to the plate. It's now 3-1 in favor of the Indians. Pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout. And that's going to end the inning. Strikeout number 4 for Jim O'Toole. So the Indians get 1 run on 2 hits. 3 men left. And after 3.5, it's the Indians 3, the Reds 1. O'Toole's going to pick up fatigue point number 7. So Lemon comes out here for the bottom of the 4th. He's got that 2-run lead back. He's going to have to face Frank Robinson first off. And Robinson's 0 for 1. Here's the pitch from Lemon. And it's a fly ball to center field that sends Dobie back near the track. And Larry makes the catch there for the first out here in the bottom of the 4th. Brings up Wally Post. Forgot to mark the Reds' error. Wally Post. Pitch from Lemon. And Post gets a hold of this one. Sends Dobie back to the track, to the wall. It's way up out of here, gone. A 1-out solo shot for Wally Post. And it's now a 1-run game again. The Indians lead 3-2, and Lemon picks up fatigue point number 5. All right. 1 out, nobody on. Gene Freeze. Here's the pitch. This one's going to stay in the infield. Bobby Avila's under that at second base, makes the catch, and there are 2 outs. So 2 outs, nobody on. Indians lead 3-2. And Gordy Coleman, who's 0 for 1. Here's the pitch. It's a fly ball to center field. Dobie's got a beat on that and makes the catch for out number 3. But the Reds get 1 back on Wally Post's solo shot. 1 run on 1 hit. No one left. And after 4 complete, it's the Indians 3 and the Reds 2. Lemon gets fatigue point number 6. All right, O'Toole. His fatigue's at 7. And it's the top of the order for the Indians and Al Smith, who is 0 for 2. There's the pitch. And Smith sends Veda Pinson back to the track, to the wall. It's off the wall. Rolls towards the infield. Smith just misses a home run, but settles for a stand-up double to start off the top of the 5th inning. So he's on second base, nobody out. Bobby Avila, who's 0 for 2. Here's the pitch. And this is another one into the left center gap. Smith rounds second. He's going to score easily. And Avila slides into second with an RBI double. And the Indians once again get that run back. And that is fatigue point number 8 for Jim O'Toole. And it's now 4 to 2. So man on second, still no one out. And that brings up Larry Doby, pitch from O'Toole. And that's a strikeout for the first out here in the top of the 5th. Strikeout number 5 for Jim O'Toole. So man on second with 1 away. And Al Rosen. Pitch from O'Toole. That's a fly ball to left field. Wally Post is under that. Makes the catch. There are 2 away. Avila holds at second base. And that brings up Vic Wirtz, Indian first baseman, who is 0 for 2. Pitch from Jim O'Toole. That's a ground ball to short. And it's going to be Casco over to Coleman. 6-3 put out to end the inning. But the Indians do pick up a run on Bobby Avila's RBI double. 1 run on 2 hits. 1 man left. After 4.5, it's now 4-2 in favor of the Indians. Jim O'Toole is going to pick up fatigue point number 9. Lemon, who is at 6. Here in the bottom of the 5th, he's going to face catcher John Edwards first. Here's the pitch. That's a line drive, but right at second baseman Bobby Avila for the first out. And it looks like O'Toole's being called back from the batter circle. And I see Ken Hunt down in the Reds bullpen starting to warm up, has his jacket off. And Jerry Lynch is going to pinch hit for O'Toole here in the bottom of the 5th. And Ken Hunt will be the Reds pitcher in the top of the 6th. So 1 out, nobody on. And Lynch is pinch hitting here. Pitch from Lemon. And right up the middle goes Lynch for a 1-out single. All right, so that pays off. And we're back to the top of the order in Don Blasingame. Blasingame's 1 for 2. He has a run scored also. Here's the pitch. That's a line drive, but once again, right at Bobby Avila for out number 2. They fire over to first base, but Lynch gets back. So man on first with 2 outs. Shortstop Eddie Casco. Casco's been on base twice. He's walked and also had a double back in the 3rd. Here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 4. Yes, number 4 for Lemon to end the inning. So, for the Reds, no runs on 1 hit, 1 man left. We've played 5. And it's the Indians 4 and the Reds 2. Lemon gets fatigue point number 7. All right, as mentioned, Jim O'Toole's day is done. And the new pitcher for the Reds is Ken Hunt. In 1961, he was 9-10 with a 3.97 ERA, 136 innings pitched. And it's going to be Dave Philly, first batter he faces. And let's get Hunt here. All right. Dave Philly here in the top of the sixth. First batter that's going to face Ken Hunt. Philly's 0 for 2. Here's the pitch. It's a fly ball to right, but it's going to be an X check for Frank Robinson. He's a 2. We're rolling 11. And Robinson just can't get to that one. And it drops in front of him. And Philly's got himself a base hit to start things off here in the top of the sixth. That brings up George Strickland, Indian shortstop. Indians are trying to make it a commanding 3-1 lead in this series. And right now they lead 4-2 here in the top of the sixth. Man on first, nobody out. George Strickland, here's the pitch. And that's a strikeout. Strikeout number 1 for Hunt. There's one away. Brings up Jim Hegan. Hegan's homered and reached on an error. And here's the pitch from Hunt. It's a ground ball back to Hunt. It's an X check. He's a 2. Roll a 20. Gotta say we're rolling again. Yes, we are. And we are still rolling again. How about that? 3 20s in a row. Can we make it 4? Yes, we can. And now we got a 4. So he's a 2. And a 4 is a nice play by Ken Hunt. And he tosses over to Gordy Coleman for the second out. So 2 outs, man on first. And Bob Lemon's going to bat. He's only at 7 fatigue points. And he's a number 3 hitting pitcher. So, yeah, he's going to bat here. Man on first, 2 away. And here's the pitch from Hunt. And it's a base hit for Lemon. Now, Philly moves up to second. He's going to hold there. So now it's runners on first and second with 2 outs. And back to the top of the order. And Al Smith. Smith is 1 for 3. Double and a run scored. Here's the pitch. That's a fly ball to center field. And that sends Pinson back to the track where he makes the catch for out number 3. The Reds leave 2 men stranded. No runs on 2 hits. 2 men left on. And after 5.5... Excuse me, the Indians leave 2 men stranded. And after 5.5, it's the Indians 4 and the Reds 2. Ken Hunt will pick up his first fatigue point. Bob Lemon, who is at 7, is going to face Veda Pinson here in the bottom of the 6th. He has a 2-run lead. The Indians lead this one 4-2. Here's the pitch. And Pinson hits a line drive, but right at third baseman. Al Rosen. And Rosen robs Pinson of a base hit there. There's one away. Brings up Frank Robinson. Robinson is 0 for 2. Here's the pitch. It's high and outside. Robinson gets a free trip down to first. So a man on first with 1 out. Wally Post homered his last time up. Pitch from Lemon. Another line drive. And right at Rosen. Fires over to first base. Diving back to the bag is Frank Robinson. He's safe. There are 2 away. So man on first with 2 outs. And Gene Freeze. Pitch from Lemon. That's a base hit. Into left field. Robinson is going to hold at second. No, he's going. Because with 2 outs, he's an 18, 1 to 18, and he is safe at third. So now they got runners on the corners with 2 outs. And Gordy Coleman. He's 0 for 2. Pitch from Lemon. And that's a base hit. That's going to score a run. RBI single. Freeze moves up to second. Robinson cruises in. Lemon picks up fatigue point number 8, and it's now 4-3. Runners on first and second, and that brings up John Edwards. And it looks like there's some other action out there in the Reds bullpen. Jim Maloney is throwing. No, I'm wrong. It's not Jim Maloney. It's Ken Johnson. Ken Johnson throwing for the Reds. All right, so we got runners on first and second with 2 outs and John Edwards. Here's the pitch from Lemon. Low and outside, and that's a walk. And they are loaded up. And that's going to be it for Ken Hunt. Theo Cardenas is going to pinch hit. Ken Johnson will be the pitcher for the Reds in the top of the 7th. Cardenas is going to pinch hit. The base is loaded and 2 outs. Can Lemon get out of this jam? Mike Garcia is warming up in the Indians bullpen. Pitch from Lemon. And that's a fly ball to center field. And Larry Doby's got that one near the track for the 3rd out. But the Reds do pick up a run. 1 run on 2 hits. 3 men left. And after 6 complete, it's the Indians 4 and the Reds 3. And Lemon gets, let's see, 6, 9. Gets his 9th fatigue point. All right. So we're back to the top of the order. Or no, excuse me. Bobby Avila will be leading things off for the Indians here in the top of the 7th. Ken Hunt's day is done. And the new pitcher for the Reds is Ken Johnson. And in 1961, he was 6-2 with a 3.25 ERA, 83 innings pitched. Listed as a starter reliever, so he's good for 7 fatigue points. And Johnson. And Avila. All right. So the Indians lead 4-3. Top of the 7th, Bobby Avila, Ken Johnson. Here's the pitch. And that's a leadoff single for Avila, his 2nd hit of the game. He's on first with nobody out. And Larry Doby. Tobey's 1 for 3 with a run scored. Pitch from Johnson. That's a walk. Now it's first and second with nobody out. My. Third baseman Al Rosen. Rosen's 1 for 3. Pitch. Another walk. So Johnson having some control issues, and the bases are loaded with nobody out. And there's some more activity in the Reds bullpen. And it's Bill Henry warming up this time. The Reds are going to have to bring the infield in here. They want to keep this a one-run game. Vic Wertz. Pitch from Johnson. And that's a strikeout for the first out. First strikeout for Johnson. The bases are still loaded. The infield's still in. And Dave Philly comes to the plate to a bunch of boos. And here's the pitch from Johnson. And that's a base hit. That's going to score a run. Everybody moves 90. And Avila scores. Philly picks up an RBI. Johnson gets his first fatigue point, and it's now 5-3 in favor of the Indians. Next up, George Strickland. Bases still loaded, 1 out, infield still in. Pitch from Johnson. It's a ground ball to short, and it's an X check. And shortstop, Casco's a 2, we roll a 6. And Casco's going to get them out of this jam because he fires to Blasingame and then to Coleman for the 6-4-3 inning and rally ending double play. But the Indians do pick up a run on 2 hits, 3 men left. And as we stretch them, it's the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. And Ken Johnson's going to get a fatigue point, his second one. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my Sprite. Alrighty, so Bob Lemon is still out here. Mike Garcia is ready to go when needed. And leading things off for the Reds here in the bottom of the 7th. Back to the top of the order in Don Blasingame. Pitch from Lemon. And Blasingame gets underneath this one. And Vic Wertz got a beat on it over at first base, and there's 1 away. Here in the top of the 7th. Next up, Eddie Casco. Pitch from Lemon. It's a ground ball to short. It's going to be an X check for George Strickland. He's a 2. We roll a 17. And he makes a diving stop, and from his knees fires over to Vic Wertz for out number 2. Great play by George Strickland, and there are 2 away here in the bottom of the 7th. Next up, Veda Pinson. Reds trail 5-3. Pitch to Veda Pinson. That's a fly ball to right field. Dave Philly is under that one near the track, makes the catch. And the Reds go 1-2-3 here in the bottom of the 7th. No runs, no hits, no one left on. 7 innings complete, and it's the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. And Lemon gets fatigue point number 10. Okay, Ken Johnson. Here in the top of the 8th, he's going to face Jim Hegan first, then the pitcher spot, and then we go back to the top of the order. with Al Smith for the Indians. So Hegan is 1 for 3. That one was a 2-run home run back in the third. Pitch from Johnson. And this is trouble. It's into left field, and it's off the wall, and it rolls away from Wally Post. But he does recover as Hegan rounds first and slides in the second with a leadoff double. And that's going to bring up the pitching spot. And Bob Lemon's day is over. Garcia's ready to go. And Wally Westlake, utility outfielder, is going to pinch hit for Lemon. All right, so man on second, nobody out. And Johnson delivers to Westlake. And he strikes him out. First out here in the top of the 8th. Strikeout number 2 for Ken Johnson. And we're back to the top of the order and Al Smith. All right, Smith is 1 for 4. Here's the pitch. It's a ground ball to third base. And the only play for Freeze is to go to Coleman at first. And they get Smith for the second out and the 5-3 put out. But Jim Hegan moves to third. So a man on third with 2 outs, and Bobby Avila comes to the plate. Avila's 2 for 4 with a run scored. Here's the pitch. This time he hits a ground ball to Eddie Casco. And Casco fires over to Coleman to end the inning. So no runs on 1 hit, 1 man left after 7.5. It's the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. And Ken Johnson will pick up fatigue point number 3. And as mentioned, Bob Lemon was lifted for a pinch hitter. And the new pitcher for the Indians is going to be starter reliever Mike Garcia. 1954, he was 19-8 with a 2.64 ERA, 259 innings pitched. And he has sort of been the closer for the Indians in this tournament so far. And he's been pretty successful. But he's got to face Frank Robinson here in the bottom of the 8th. He's going for the 6-out save. Here's the pitch. And he gets Robinson to put it on the ground. It's hit over to Al Rosen at third, to Vic Wertz, and there is one away here in the bottom of the 8th. And let me write Garcia's name in here. That brings up Wally Post. Post is 1 for 3. That one was a 2-run a solo shot back in the 4th. Here's the pitch. This time he puts it on the ground. And once again, it's over there to Al Rosen. And once again, he fires over to Vic Wertz for out number 2. Second verse, same as the first. And there's 2 away. And that brings up Gene Freeze. Freeze is 1 for 3. Pitch from Garcia. And this one's popped up. And George Strickland's under that at short. Makes the catch. And the Reds go 1-2-3. No runs, no hits, no one left. 8 innings have been completed. And it is the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. Garcia will get his first fatigue point. Ken Johnson trying to keep his Reds within striking distance. And leading things off for the Indians here in the top of the 9th is Larry Doby. Doby is 1 for 3 with a run scored. Here's the pitch. And he lifts this one sky high. And over at first base, Gordy Coleman is under it, and he makes the catch for the first out. So 1 out, nobody on, and Al Rosen, Indians' third baseman. Here's the pitch. And that is sending Veda Pinson back to the track, to the wall. He jumps up, it's off the wall. And Rosen cruises into second base. Thinks about going to third, but he's going to hold there with a 1 out double. That brings up Vic Wertz. Man on second, 1 out. Pitch from Johnson. Man, that's a strikeout. Out number 2 here in the top of the 9th. And strikeout number 3 for Ken Johnson. Once again, Philly comes to the plate. To a roar of boos. Has picked up an RBI in this one. And he is 2 for 4. Man on second, 2 out. Pitch from Johnson. And that's a base hit into shallow center. Rosen's being held up at third. So there's runners on the corners with 2 outs. And George Strickland. Strickland is 1 for 3 with a run scored. Pitch from Johnson. That's a ground ball to second base. Don Blasingame over to Gordy Coleman. 4-3 put out to end the inning. So no runs on 2 hits for the Indians. 2 men left. As we go to the bottom of the 9th, it's the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. And why am I missing a card here? And after Strickland is Hegan. Now where the heck is Hegan? Okay, got a problem here. Ken Johnson's, there's Hegan. Okay, so Strickland, Hegan, and the next batter will be Hegan. All right, I'll worry about that if we have to. Somehow my cards got a little messed up. We'll get that straightened out if we go to extra innings. All right, so anyway, apologize for that. Garcia out here to try to close this one out. Bottom of the 9th. It's going to be the bottom of the order. Gordy Coleman, John Edwards, and then the pitching spot. Oh. Indians have a 2-run lead. Pitch from Garcia. It's a ground ball to first base. And Vic Wertz going to take that unassisted for the first out. Next up, John Edwards. Pitch from Garcia. Edwards gets under this one. And George Strickland's waving everyone off over there at short. And he's got the catch for out number 2. And batting for Ken Johnson here, the last hope for the Reds is going to be Gus Bell. And Bill Henry is warming up if needed. So Gus Bell, pinch hitting here, 2 outs. He's the last hope to keep this game alive and prevent the Indians from going up 3-1. Pitch from Garcia. That's a fly ball to right field. And Dave Philly's there near the track, makes the catch. The Reds go 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 9th. No runs, no hits. And that's it. No one left on base, and that's it for this one. Final score is the Indians 5 and the Reds 3. Let's get some totals. The Indians 5 runs on 13 hits. No errors. The Reds, 3 runs, 6 hits. They committed 1 error. Winning pitcher is Bob Lemon. And the loss goes to Jim O'Toole. And Mike Garcia picks up another 6-out save. And the Indians go up 3-1 in this series and are certainly in the driver's seat. Well, if you hung out with me tonight, I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around, and thanks for your patience. And I'll be back again in the near future with another video. And thanks for being with me when I've reached 200. And I'll see you again soon. Take care.